I'm Nicole Barnes. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Grants and Community Development.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Hopkins. I'm the Business Manager for the Department of Grants and Community Development.
First slide is our department's organizational structure, focusing primarily on our 4 offices. The first office being the Office of the Commissioner. The second office is our Office of Program Operations, with the director being Gerald Reed. That office is front-facing, and most of our team members in the Office of Program Operations, they focused on contract development, they assist with subrecipient trainings, and they are typically the first point of contact for many of our subrecipients. Then if we skip the middle office and go to the far right, the Office of Fiscal Operations, while its primary responsibilities are the fiduciary duties of the department, many of those team members are also front-facing, particularly as it relates to reimbursement requests and budget development. And then the middle office, the Office of Entitlement and Competitive Compliance, with Director Genevieve Jones, oversees the entire department. All of us are subject to that department, including myself. This is how we make certain that the entire city, as it relates to every grant dollar we receive, is in compliance with HUD requirements, as well as those requirements of the competitive grants that we assist our other City of Atlanta departments with their applications. So 2 years ago, I was admonished for not really sharing the progress that the department had made at that time. So this time I fleshed it out just a bit with help from the team, and we have come a long way as a department. The first accomplishment listed here is that we maintain the required 30-day period of reimbursement for all of our entitlement grants with HUD. Now, 3-4 years ago, we were looking at an average of 144 days or more. We have some subrecipients represented here who can attest to that. And what we consistently maintain now is an average of 30 days. Now, that average is what's required with 2 CFR, but we often beat the average. However, there are some instances where we go slightly over, but the average for the department has not been more than 30 days the entire fiscal year. We've also truly streamlined our compliance procedures, our operational compliance procedures, so much so that in the last monitoring that just took place a few weeks ago, while we don't have the official report from HUD, so this is not an official report, but it is me confidently sharing with you all that we did well. We anticipate no findings, and that's a very long way from 8 special conditions and many, many other findings. In the 4.5 years that I've been here, HUD has monitored the City of Atlanta for 1 or more grants, and will likely continue to monitor us because the look-back period yields that our results will be monitored. But I'm really proud to announce that we are doing well. We have become far more efficient. Our policies and procedures are not only up to par, but beyond what's required of us as a city, not beyond what HUD requires of our subrecipients. That was an issue for many of our subrecipients. We are not requiring more of them, but we are requiring more of ourselves. We are also doing so well that the federal government asked us to apply for funds. And in the past, they gave us a 3rd allocation of ESG CV funds because we were being consistent with our drawdowns and making certain that our subrecipients were spending appropriately and timely. But recently, we have applied for 2 additional funds and have been awarded those funds. The first was the Healthy Homes, and that allows low-income families in the city to receive free health and safety assessments and repairs for their homes. This allows their homes to be health hazard free, or as close thereto as possible. And we received $1.75 million for HUD's Healthy Homes. And then in April, we received the Lead Hazard Reduction Capacity Grant in the amount of $1.857 million. Those funds will help us build the capacity to provide those home assessments and to ensure that our children, our target population is homes with 12 with children aged 12 and under are living in healthy homes and doing our parts to assist. And again, because we are in fact abiding by the federal regs, and because we have implemented policies and procedures that align with what the federal government is looking for us to do with those funds, we're now finding ourselves more successful in our applications. We also continue to, as I mentioned earlier, meet and exceed the federal compliance standards because we apply them to ourselves on an even more heightened level. So what's coming in 25? We have excitedly implemented Neighborly Grants Management System. This system truly works well with HUD systems and HUD's requirements, so much so that we have utilized it for the entirety of our notice of funds availability process. We hope to this year fully implement it for our contracting needs and also for our reimbursement needs. We have enhanced the processes for conducting on-site monitoring. What we've implemented through our compliance office leading the way and the other two offices assisting is monitoring our subrecipients the same way HUD monitors us. We are monitoring by mirroring. So if HUD requires it of us, we require it of our subrecipients. And then lastly, we have truly focused on intentionally improving our efforts to assist our subrecipients and sub-grantees, but we found it equally important to return to engaging with the service recipients and making sure we are actively involved in the community so we too hear from them and can provide services and provide funding for services that truly matter to our residents. This particular slide focuses on our head count as it relates to general funds. So you'll see we've got a total of 47.5 positions funded with general funds. I will say as an aside that we also have positions that are funded with entitlement grants. We get a percentage of every allocation for administrative purposes, and the majority of those administrative funds go towards additional positions. I do want to share that where you see a partial position is because that position is funded by both general funds and entitlement funds. And we want to note that of the 27.5 unfunded position, the department is yielding or abolishing 8 of those positions as they are either unneeded or better funded with entitlement funds. This slide, of course, just shows where we were last year and then what we're asking for in this coming budget year. And I suspect that our department probably goes through this slide fairly quickly. Just looking at the amount, the variance is primarily for salaries. We did want to share that in our efforts to stabilize our retention, our efforts at recruiting, we've really honed in on our relationships with our professional associations, because for us it's vitally important that we attract candidates with experience, and specifically experience with entitlement grants. We have found that even those who know grants don't quite know entitlement grants, and it's just a steep uphill battle to make sure they understand the work and then understand it the way the city does it, and then stay and not be overwhelmed by the amount of work we have to do. And then also increasing the professional development opportunities for our team members so that they continue to grow and have somewhere to go within the department and ultimately within the city, but it's our goal to keep them within the department. And as quickly as we started, it seems we are over. We're done.
All right, well, thank you for your presentations, colleagues. I'll open up for questions from, I see Councilmember Winston.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation today, Commissioner Lon. You did bring up entitlement grants as being a part of like your operations and helping you with funding. Could you just talk about a little bit about how you rely on that? Is there a percentage? Because I know you've got general fund budget here, but how much more of a percentage would you say entitlement grants add to that?
Yes, sir. When the City of Atlanta receives its annual allocation for our 4 entitlement grants, each of those allocations annually comes with a cap, a percentage that we can apply towards administration. So we get CDBG funds, and every allocation of CDBG permits us to take 20% of the total allocation for administrative purposes. For our home funds, we can take up to 10% for admin. For ESG, we can take up to 7.5% for admin. And for HOPWA, we can take up to 3% for admin. We take those percentages and utilize them to support administrative positions that are serving the entire department or are specific to those grant services. So I think the specific answer to your question, sir, is at least 50% of our budget is from our administrative portions. But it's important to understand that those caps are per allocation, and then they expire at different times. Our HOPWA cap expires after 3 years for each allocation. Our CDBG cap expires after 7 years. Our home cap expires after 8 years. Our ESG expires after 24 months. So we have to track all of that and make certain that those staff members who are paid with those portions will continue having those portions completely contingent upon the city's allocation.
Okay, you just answered my second question, was just how does that work towards positions that you've already allocated funds for? So, all right, thank you. That was the only question I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So let me kind of lean into that one a little bit more. So slide 3, where you have your head count,
Yes.
the other funds, is that just the intergovernmental grant line item? So there's only one position, or is this just general fund, and that if we were to factor in the staff positions that are funded by the administrative caps on the others, there'd be another tranche?
A completely separate tranche.
What's the magnitude of that count, that head count?
So at this point, we're at 22 additional staff members that are funded by our entitlement funds.
So your whole team is 42.
Yes, sir.
And you feel like that's sufficient at least
Yes, sir.
for all the many. I did have a question about your budget, your specific budget, the one line item where there was a reduction of one-time funding of $100,000. I was proud. That just because we had a budget amendment for that last year. How did it end? I don't know that.
That's correct.
Councilmember Boone, was that Councilmember Boone's request?
Yes.
Okay. We know, ask for that again? And was that, I would trust they were fully deployed?
They were, and I think we just housed it,
Okay.
and we made sure that they were deployed, but we didn't actually follow or provide any additional services for those funds.
And then the same question I've been asking about the salary line item, is that a combination of both adjustments as well as the full-time, full-year allocation? All right, so the last thing I want to ask about is about HOPWA, because you're probably aware we've been receiving some communications from the community about just the situation that we find ourselves in. So we knew that there were federal funds, the allocation steps that were going to result in fewer dollars. So I'm curious as to what paths may be for us in terms of helping with that delta, that change, and what sort of coordination is with service providers and what we can help with that. The last thing we want is for those that are currently housed to somehow or another, because of some of these cuts, suddenly find themselves, these service providers, unable to provide housing. So what can you share with us in terms of response to the?
Yes, sir. What you're referring to is the impact of HOPWA modernization. In about 2020 was when the city of Atlanta knew that we were going to officially be impacted by the reduction in the city's HOPWA allocation. Now, we knew it was forthcoming, but the true impact came between 20 and 21. In 2021, the city was allocated approximately $22 million in HOPWA funds. That was our average for all of the previous years. Then in 2022, we experienced an approximate 40% reduction and ended up as $12,997,000, so about $13 million. And in 23, we went to 14,690, so a slight increase, but certainly not back up to 22. Our newest allocation went up again to 15,393,000. So an upward incline, but certainly we are not anticipating returning to the $22 million. The very first thing the Department of Grants and Community Development did was engage with our largest project sponsors. We used the data that we collect annually from them and had real conversations about what their needs were, how many people were in fact going to be impacted by the reduction contingent upon the type of services those three project sponsors offered. What we heard very clearly was the most important step we could take was acquisition of property. If we own the property, we could control the affordability of those properties. And so we reallocated funds appropriately, to acquisition, and our project sponsors came through. They were able in this very, very tough housing economy to obtain property that is going to remain permanently affordable, not just with the funds that we allocated, with other funds, but we played a significant role in utilizing our HOPWA funds. And that was step one. Two, Mayor's office established, DC Barnes here is got some really good numbers. Go ahead and share that, please.
So approximately $23 million was awarded to capital activities for acquisition amongst our project sponsors.
What was the source of those funds?
Can you repeat that?
What were the source of those funds? Because they obviously weren't part of that.
They were part of it. It was from reallocated funds from other project sponsors that couldn't timely expend. And so we reallocated it to acquisition to ensure that we met those HUD expenditure guidelines while meeting those needs, or as much as we could with HOPWA modernization.
That is a very good point that DC Barnes brings up. While our largest project sponsors often need more money than we have, there are many instances where funds were not being timely spent, and if we do not spend funds, we have them recaptured and we're in the paper, and we don't want that, especially because the need is great. So we reallocated, as DC Barnes shared, almost $23 million, actually more than $23 million. Those funds went towards acquisition. We continue prioritizing acquisition. However, there was, in fact, a $10 million gap between the impact of modernization and the first year where we truly felt the reduction. So Mayor's office established the HOPWA Modernization Task Force, and that task force includes Council President Shipman, CDHS Vice Chair Dozier, Mayor's Deputy Chief of Staff Wagner. We had two HOPWA project sponsor leaders, Miriam Lewis and Nicole Roebuck, longtime HOPWA advocate Jeff Graham, members of my team, the Chief Equity Officer, the Legislative Affair primary point of contact, and others come together to collaborate and to really take data, make some real data-focused, informed decisions. We asked our project sponsors what they needed. We asked our project sponsors how many people are in fact being directly impacted by this, how many people are likely to not be serviced because of this, and we utilize those numbers. And ultimately, that committee or that task force made a recommendation to Mayor's office and to council, and the decision thereafter is out of my hands. It won't be part of my budget, but Mayor's office and this council is aware of, I believe this council is aware of what the recommendation is, and there are plans in place that will come from Mayor's office.
Yeah, I don't know that I am yet, but I think that's what this whole process is. I mean, I appreciate the background. I think it's going to be important as we continue to move through this that we're communicating with the service providers, because, you know, I think what folks see from the outside is that we as a city have sources of funds that we could apply to helping. I don't want to be the continuous stopgap for this going forward, but I think strategic, much like you've suggested about where our dollars can be most effectively invested short term, that provides the service providers kind of a connective tissue to a sustainable solution going forward. That's going to be important. So they see the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I mean, we all kind of see it, and we're all thinking, oh, all the different applications this might be one of them, as well as a fund balance, which I know I just made CFO kind of jump in his seat when I mentioned that. But just please continue to keep in touch with us. We look forward to hearing from the administration what the plan is going forward or what their recommendation is. Like I said, my priority is that at the end of the day, we're not asking or forcing our service providers to turn people back out on the streets because of a lack of funding when we could help solve and address that.
On that note, if you don't mind, I would also like to share that we have been more intentional in informing our service providers of how all of our funds are intertwined, especially as it relates to affordable housing. So one who is eligible for HOPWA services is not precluded from CDBG resources or ESG resources. And then certainly all of the work that council and the administration are doing collectively to combat the increased cost of housing and all of our affordable housing efforts, HOPWA eligible residents and households would still be able to take advantage of that. And we are working with constituent services, with 311 and others to make sure we continue providing as many additional resources outside of HOPWA funds as possible.
Thank you for that. Colleagues, any other questions or comments? I'm going to close by just thanking you. I mean, I know that my first year back on council, the communications that we were getting from about grants and reimbursements and all that, it just felt like everything was on fire. And the first data point that you opened, our average 30-day turnaround, speaks volumes to your leadership, your team's commitment, your organization, but your understanding of our goal is to deploy the funds and get them out as quickly as possible. Rather, it doesn't do us any good if we're sitting on reimbursements and not getting service providers. So I just wanted to at least publicly thank you again. Acknowledge that since I don't sit on CDHS and I don't get the opportunity to do it during committee. But please extend those thanks to your team. Good work, and let's see what we can do about this HOPWA situation, because that's the biggest issue before us. 180-degree turnaround.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the entire team, it certainly takes all of us to get it done. So thank you.
All right, colleagues, with that, we are concluded with today's hearings. We will continue again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. What did you say? Oh, sorry, that's right. There is a 6 o'clock public hearing for a tax millage rate from 6 to 6:15. That'll be followed by the interactive community budget session from 6:15 to 7. And then we'll reconvene in chambers tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. for the Department of Finance, followed by executive offices. So with that, we stand adjourned for today. Thank you.